Hey, my name is Steven. I am a graphic designer that focuses on editorial and packaging design. Today we're going to be reviewing my top K-pop albums of 2023. What I do want to start out with is that these albums are in no particular order. It really doesn't make sense for me to rank what is the best and what is the worst, and that's why I'm focusing on my favorites from the year. In addition to this, as a whole for 2023, I'm a little bit disappointed in some of the design that came out from a lot of the groups. Now, K-pop is no stranger to sticking to trends and genres, and a lot of times that can translate into a span of over a few years before we get out of that trend cycle. This year is no difference, as we saw a lot of the trends over the past couple of years spill into 2023 as well. There's a lot of albums that focused on minimalism, a lot of gradients. We have a lot of albums that take aesthetics from the McBling, futuristic Y2K, and cybercore. A lot of strictly editorial-based albums, which, to be frank, is nothing new to K-pop. Photography and editorial work is coveted in K-pop album designs and concepts. And of course, fans love the photos. Photo card collecting is a huge aspect of K-pop album buying. So of course, albums are gonna lean more into photography. It isn't necessarily a trend in the last few years, but a trend that covers all of K-pop in all the different eras. Let's start off the list with a boy group from SM, and specifically the subunit DOJAEJUNG and their first mini album, Perfume. The publication NME describes Perfume as an indulgent tale of a torrid romance in 6 parts, chronicling the early stages of all-consuming emotion to bittersweet end, where Do-young, Jaehyung, and Jungwoo are left alone to pick up the pieces. All the design components throughout the album come together to create really nice unity and to tell the overall tone and story. I think what really sold me on this album is the fact that with the promotions, they actually sold a physical perfume that fans could purchase. I think this really allows to connect the overall musicality and story of the album in with something physical, and also expanding to a different sense that isn't just touch and sight. There's really something intimate and personal about a perfume. And beyond the design of this album, I think it's just really clever to sell a perfume along with your album. I like the color palette that was used here. We have a lot of very earthy tones. There's some sense of honesty and trust established here. And I like that it was sparingly used throughout the album. This establishes some really nice value here. There are contrasts between each element of design. You have an album that is mostly white with splashes of black, and then a little bit of this pops of color that are used sparingly. This creates a lot of rhythm and flow, and ultimately places some really nice hierarchy in order for the viewer to be able to consume what is being shown to them. The lyrics page is really cleverly designed. It resembles a breakdown of notes that you would find for a fragrance. It's legible, it's straightforward, and I think it just continues to push this concept. There's a really good use of a grid here. It's very formal, straightforward, and legible. I like the serifs that were chosen here for the typography. There's something very delicate about it and luxurious at the same time. All design elements here play really well into each other. There is really good variety here to break up an album that could really have been very dull in design. And overall, there's a really good sense of tone developed here that is very emotional. Next up, we have TXT's album, The Name Chapter, Freefall. The Name Chapter, Freefall, is a story of youth who have been delaying their adulthood and escaping from the world, but finally decided to face reality. The process of free-falling into reality is tormenting, and reality bites, but they make a firm determination to go on, facing up to everything around them. Some of my favorite album designs in all of K-pop in all of the years is using typography over photography and any other graphical element. And TXT does this here very well. The type choice here is bold, it's in your face, it's gritty. I like the use of rhythm here by repetition. They are repeating the name of the album, which creates almost a sense of falling, right? When you're following each title, you're kind of starting from the top down in most cases. And I think that creates a really nice rhythm. I really like the treatment to the typography. It gives this really gritty sense, something very dirty, and adds some texture to the overall design. To further push that tone and ruggedness, they did a very muted color palette, whites, beiges, and then a pop of color. Again, those more muted tones kind of give this more rugged and dirty feel, while the pop of color in their logo mark creates emphasis. And when we think of blue, and particularly that navy tone, there's a sense of trust and honesty there. And I like this kind of duality that's being played. It's almost like they're going through something very emotional, something very hard. There's some really rough challenges here, but there's some honesty and trust through this. Like, don't worry, it's gonna be okay, but there will be bumps along the way. I enjoy that the grid doesn't really allow for negative space. This really creates a lot of tension and anxiety, which plays really well into pushing the concept of the album. Something that I do want to note, with TXT and who's ever designing their albums, what they really do very well that is different from a lot of other K-pop groups currently, for every album comeback, they manipulate their logo. It changes depending on the album and their concept. And I think that's really great in terms of branding, to be able to have an expansive logo that can be shifted to whatever tone they're trying to establish is quite spectacular, especially from a design standpoint. Next up, we have NewJeans' second EP, Get Up, the Bunny Beach Bag version. Okay, let me just be honest for one moment. While I like the overall design and the components together of this album, what I want to note is I am getting so sick of this particular trend. The cybercore, McBling, futuristic Y2K aesthetics that are kind of being established within K-pop right now. Not only within music, but within design. However, I think as an overall design within these aesthetics, for this particular year, NewJeans has done it the best. Something that I found really unique about this design, similar to the NCT album Perfume, what I really liked about a lot of K-pop this year and last year too, was the inclusion of physical items, things that their fans and consumers could actually use. And for this album, they created this really cute bag. And I think it fits really well into these aesthetics that they're pulling from. It's definitely a bit more modern than some of the things that you would find during these eras. Taking something from that era and modernizing it is a good approach in terms of selling a product. What a lot of albums from this year and the previous year within this kind of aesthetic do is extract certain elements and minimalize it. What I like here, what NewJeans has done, is added some variety and levels of texture by incorporating illustrations and photography into the mix, because it really breaks up what could be a really flat design. What I love about some of the design elements here is specifically the typographic choices. There's a really good mix of every kind of font you could think of, but a lot of it at its core is handwritten styles. And I think that really plays well into the aesthetics they're pulling from. There's something energetic and fun about it. And it is also very personal. It looks like it's written in like a diary or journal, which also provides this very youthful feel. The color palette is eccentric and loud. It works really well, again, with the overall aesthetic and concept of the album. And as I mentioned, these albums feel like a journal or a diary. And I think a lot of that has to do with the layering of these elements, and then particularly not following a very strict grid, allowing for things to flow in order to create movement and direction to allow the consumer to digest each piece very easily. With bringing all of these elements together to create a really great tone that fits within NewJeans' brand. Next up, we have Shinee's Key and his recent album, Good and Great, specifically the cover letter version. The single Good and Great is a pop dance song that unrolls around the rhythmic piano, while an appealing mixture of an easy to sing along melody and unique vocals. The lyrics not only carry Key's confidence in himself and what he does, but also arouse sympathy through witty expressions from workers in the world. I feel like for the last few years, Key has been really on this stride in terms of album concept and the packaging design. I am blown away each time by their concepts and how they deliver them. And this album is no exception. This album is so playful and campy and kitschy. From top to bottom, with all the inclusions, the design choices are thought about through and through. And this is why it makes a really excellent album design. The design is very direct of what it is. It's a folder, a duotang, something that you would find at an office. A lot of the grid work found in this design is very formal and legible. The color palette mixes a pale violet, blue, pink, and a medium gray and black. There's something really mundane about it, but with these added pops of color, it brings the design to life. There are elements that really pop out here, like the splashes of red and the photography pieces. And these elements break up what could be a really monotonous design. There's a really good use of space here. A lot of the design uses negative space, which creates emphasis and hierarchy. There are pieces within this design that don't have a lot of negative space, but use value in order to create emphasis and hierarchy. And as per usual with SM editorials, the quality is just outstanding. And this is why I love this album design and Key's perspective when it comes to his concepts. Next up, we have Day 6's Young K and his first album, Letters with Notes. Letters with Notes is a work that shows the true side of Young K, who has already entered his 9th year since his debut. It contains a world of music that has deepened over time, deep emotions, and a complete story in one album. The album concept tells the story of a person in a conflicting situation by unraveling it. Young K's presence as an artist is illuminated. The sharp expression of a deep concern, and on the contrary, the relaxed look of stability and cool nature are all a part of the face of an artist with ambivalent elements that go back and forth between deficiency and fulfillment. There's some really beautiful and delicate design choices here that I love. The use of an envelope for the album is really clever and really establishes the tone of the overall album. And if you notice, the album is actually a sheet of music that is folded in on itself. This really creates this romantic feel, like a loved one giving you a letter. I love all the typographic choices here. They really explore handwritten styles, which is true to form. If you're sending a letter to someone, most likely you're not going to be typing it up and you're going to be handwriting it. It adds this very personal and delicate touch, which is established in this design as well. I like that the album color palette is just navy and white. Again, I think it made really sense to use white as the base, because most paper is off-white or white. And the navy tone, as I mentioned previously in one of the other albums, when we think of navy, it really invokes a sense of honesty, reliability, and trust, and here is no exception. All of these elements play really well into each other and create a really good sense of rhythm and movement. A really big component of this is this album doesn't follow a grid. It's very organic and asymmetrical, and I think that really speaks to the overall tone that they're trying to establish. Having the typographic choices here be asymmetrical really also creates emphasis. Overall, I love how all the design elements here work together to create tone. And again, something that I really love about these albums, and particularly this one, is typography is chosen over photography and other graphical elements. And that's something that I really appreciate when it comes to design, because a lot of albums can use photography in order to establish concept and tone, but to use only typography or color in order to create that, I think invokes something that is a little bit more emotional and intimate. Hey, this is Editing Steven. I just needed to come and pop in and let y'all know that this is actually going to be a two-parter video. I've been sitting down editing this for about a day or two, and I just realized it's gonna be a 40-minute video, and that's just a lot for me. It's also a lot for people to watch. As a neurodivergent person, yeah, sometimes these longer videos can be a bit challenging for me to get through. So we're breaking it up into 2 parts, and that's why I'm here letting you know. If you want to see the second part to this video, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. I talk about editorial, packaging, and graphic design in the world of K-pop, and I would love to talk to you more about these topics as they are near and dear to my heart. All right, bye now.